The sound of gentle weeping echoed through the halls of the royal house, a mournful song of loss and weariness. Queen Miriel, the mother of Feanor, lay upon her bed, her strength fading with each passing moment. The birth of her son had drained her, not just of physical vitality, but of something deeper, more profound. How could the arrival of a child so brilliant, so full of promise, mark the beginning of so much sorrow and death? This is the tragic story of Miriel, a tale of sacrifice, loss, and the enduring consequences that shaped the tale of the Noldor. She was known among the Noldor as the Broideress, for her hands were deft and her works of embroidery were unmatched in beauty. Her skill reflected her spirit, delicate yet powerful, intricate yet profound. In her, the creative fire of the Noldor burned brightly, a flame that would be passed down to her son, Feanor. However, she carried a burden that would eventually lead to her undoing. Upon giving birth to Feanor, the most gifted and ambitious of all of the Noldor, she was consumed by exhaustion that went far beyond the physical. Her very spirit seemed to be spent, as though the creation of Feanor had taken all that she had to give. In the Silmarillion, it said that Feanor's birth was like no other. He was born with a spirit so fiery, so intense, that it seemed to burn through his mother's vitality. Despite her love for her son, she felt an overwhelming weariness that she could not seem to shake. Like a good mother, her love for her child was immense, but so too was the toll his birth had taken on her. She struggled with the profound inner conflict, the joy of bringing him into the world, and the deep sense of her own waning life. Her husband, Finwe, adored her and their son, but he could not understand the depth of her weariness. In her weakened state, she made a decision that would forever alter the course of her family and her people. She chose to lay down her life, entrusting the care of Feanor to Finwe and the future of the Noldor to fate. She expressed her desire to depart from the living world, seeking rest in the halls of Mandos, where the spirits of the dead dwell. This decision was unprecedented and deeply troubling to the Noldor. In the immortal lands of Valinor, where death was rare and life was eternal, her choice was seen as both tragic and perplexing. The elves believed that life in Valinor was a gift, free from the burdens of mortality, and yet her spirit was so spent that even the bliss of Valinor failed to restore her. Her passing left a profound void in the lives of her family. Finwe was devastated, torn between his duty to his people and his love for his wife and his son. He sought counsel from the Valar, the mighty rulers of the world, but even their wisdom could not alleviate his sorrow. For Feanor, the loss of his mother would become a defining aspect of his character. Though he was too young to fully understand her departure and left a shadow over his life, he grew up with a fierce independence and a burning desire to achieve greatness, as if to prove himself worthy of the life his mother had given to him. This loss, coupled with his unparalleled skill and ambition, shaped Feanor into a complex and often tragic figure. His brilliance would lead him to create the Silmarils, the most wondrous and coveted jewels in all of Arda, but it would also drive him to rebellion and ultimately to doom. The halls of the underworld were silent as his mother's spirit found rest among the departed, and yet her death echoed far beyond those silent walls, leaving ripples in the lives of those that she left behind. For Finwe, the loss of his beloved wife was a wound that time could not heal. His heart, once beating and full of joy, was now weighed down by a deep and abiding sorrow. However, as always, the world of the living continued to move forward, and Finwe, despite his grief, had to make a choice that would shape the destiny of his people. He was the king of the Noldor and was a noble and wise leader. However, even the wisdom of the elves could not shield him from the pain of losing his wife. As years passed, he found himself yearning for companionship and the warmth of a family once more. He sought the counsel of the the.lore, asking for their guidance and permission to remarry, a request that was almost unheard of among the immortal elves. The the.lore, understanding the depth of his grief, granted him permission to wed again. This decision, though compassionate, was not without consequence. He took a second wife, Indis of the Feanor, a kind and gentle elf who brought light back into his life. From this union, he fathered several more children who would play crucial roles in the history of the Noldor. However, his remarriage and the birth of his new family stirred complex emotions in Feanor. He was fiercely protective of his mother's memory and viewed Indis and her children with suspicion and resentment. To him, his father's new family seemed to diminish his mother's legacy, a feeling that would grow into a deep and abiding mistrust of all of his half-siblings. As Finwe sought to rebuild his life, Feanor's star continued to rise. Even from a young age, he demonstrated a brilliance that set him apart from all others. His mind was sharp, his skills unmatched, and his ambitions, those were boundless. The fire that had burned so brightly in his mother now blazed within him, fueling his relentless pursuit of knowledge and mastery. He became a master craftsman, surpassing even the greatest of the Noldor's artisans. His most famous creations were the Silmarillions, 3 perfect jewels that captured the light of the 2 trees of Valinor. These jewels were a testament to his unparalleled skill and his ability to channel the creative legacy of his mother. However, they were also a source of great pride and possessiveness. The Silmarillions were not merely beautiful. They held a symbolic power that resonated deeply with the Noldor. They were a representation of Feanor's unmatched talent and a source of inspiration for his people. And yet, the very act of creating the Silmarillions would set in motion events that would lead to strife, betrayal, and tragedy. As Feanor's influence grew, so too did the tensions within the house of Finwe. Feanor's resentment towards his stepmother and her children, particularly Fingolfin, created a rift that would only deepen over time. Feanor viewed himself as the true heir of Finwe, the rightful leader of the Noldor, and the guardian of his mother's legacy. This sense of superiority fueled his distrust and disdain for his half-siblings. The discord within the family was not lost on the Noldor, who admired Feanor's brilliance, but were also wary of his pride and his temper. His growing influence and the looming shadow of his ambitions cast a pall over the unity of the Noldor, foreshadowing the conflicts that would later erupt into open rebellion. Despite her physical absence, Miriel's influence continued to shape the destiny of her family and her people. The legacy of her sacrifice and the fire that she had passed on to Feanor became central to the identity of the Noldor. Her tragic death and the choices that followed highlighted the complexities of love, loss, and the burdens of legacy. Her story serves as a reminder of the cost of greatness and the weight of destiny. Her life, though brief, left a mark on Middle-earth, a mark that would resonate through the ages in the deeds and struggles of her descendants. The fiery spirit that she passed on to Feanor was both a gift and a curse. As his influence over the Noldor grew, so too did his ambition and his pride. The Silmarillions, his greatest creation, became both a symbol of his unparalleled skill and the source of immense tragedy. The seeds of discord sown within the House of Finwe would soon bloom into full-scale rebellion, forever altering the fate of the Noldor. The tragedy of Miriel and the tensions within her family culminated in a defining moment for the Noldor, when Melkor, later known as Morgoth, stole the Silmarillions and fled to Middle-earth. Feanor's rage knew no bounds. The theft of the Silmarillions was not just a personal affront, but a desecration to his mother's legacy and the Noldor's greatest treasures. Feanor, consumed by wrath and a desire for vengeance, led the Noldor in a rebellion against the the.lore. He swore a terrible oath with his sons, vowing to pursue Morgoth and reclaim the Silmarillions at any cost. This oath, bound them to a path of relentless pursuit and inevitable tragedy. It was an oath that would lead to bloodshed, betrayal, and the eventual downfall of many of the Noldor. In their haste to pursue Morgoth, Feanor and his followers committed the first kinslaying. Desperate to secure ships to sail to Middle-earth, Feanor's host attacked the Teleri, their kin, resulting in a brutal and unnecessary slaughter. This act of kinslaying marked the Noldor with a stain of blood and sorrow, casting a shadow over their quest. The Valar, witnessing the rebellion and the kinslaying, pronounced the doom of Mandos upon this Noldor. This curse foretold the suffering and ruin that would follow them to Middle-earth. The Noldor's rebellion, driven by Feanor's unyielding will, became a harrowing journey of loss and strife. In Middle-earth, Feanor's relentless pursuit of Morgoth continued. However, his fiery spirit, so full of determination, would be his undoing. In a fierce battle against Morgoth's forces, Feanor was mortally wounded. Even as he lay dying, his spirit burned with an unyielding desire for vengeance. He perished before reclaiming the Silmarils, leaving his sons to continue his doomed quest. His death marked the end of an era that did not halt the tragic chain of events his actions had set in motion. His sons, bound by their father's oath, continued the quest for the Silmarils, perpetuating the cycle of violence and loss. Though his mother had long since departed, her legacy endured in the tragic saga of her son and her people. Her decision to give everything for the birth of Feanor left an indelible mark on the fate of her people. The fire of her spirit, though brilliant, consumed those it touched, leaving a legacy of both brilliance and sorrow. Her life and death serve as a reminder of the complex interplay between love, sacrifice, and destiny. Her story is one of quiet strength and profound tragedy, echoing through the ages as a testament to the cost of greatness. Her story is intertwined with the rise and fall of Feanor, the rebellion of the Noldor, and the sorrow that followed. It's a tale of love, loss, and the enduring impact of one woman's choice.